Hello and welcome to Agile TD Mondays, today with Eddy Bruin. But before we start, please check out our tutorial speakers. They are awesome and they will bring you the best knowledge and the best expertise to the Agile Testing Days. You can register for the either half-day or full-day tutorials on our webpage. So please go to agiletestingdays.com program and choose your favorite tutorial. And now to you, Eddy.
Hello there, fellow testers. Hope you can see me all. Welcome today with our very exciting topic of experiencing the good and bad in a safe environment and how to grow your people without pushing them too hard. Well, there's this big vision behind this presentation. That's why this opening slide has the word vision on it, obviously. Okay, I'll be honest with you. I made this slide up just for people that don't like the word game. It is true, though. I'm going to present you something about games and how to use them in your environment. But if you're a person that thinks, all those games with Agile and testing, I don't know about it, then please stick with me. If you know such people and you want them to play more because you know, well, it can help you in your work, use this slide instead of this opening slide, because it's more playful and people might not take it seriously. I do like it, though. So the actual topic is learning by gaming. And you do that in a safe environment, of course, without pushing your people, but they are actually learning something. So we're going to make some work that you do a little bit more fun. I'm going to show you some games, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about why this actually works. And we're going to be serious about play and about games in this presentation.
So Eddy, why is it important to play?
Why is it important to play? Well, first you need to understand then what actually play is. Play is something that's an instinct, actually. There was this Dutch historian, and in 1938 he created a book. He wrote a book called Homo Ludens, saying that the humankind has always been playing. And what he means by that is that when you play, it's an urge that you have inside you, that you fumble around with things, or that you just go and play. It is actually complete freedom without thinking about what are we actually doing. So imagine that you're kicking a ball against the wall. It's not a game, it's just for fun. You just like to kick a ball against the wall. And in that freedom, you discover, for instance, how gravity works. You've learned something. You weren't aware of that fact, but while you were playing, you learned stuff. And that's actually why I like play so much, because if you take the word ludens from the title, Homo Ludens, it comes from ludere, the Latin word. And what that means is, well, it's hard to translate, actually, because it simultaneously means going to school, practice, and play. So I really like it that the Romans in their time had a word where there was no difference between practicing and playing and having fun. They were all the same. And I'd like to bring that back to you. I'd like to bring back the sensation of playing games, but then learning something. So that's what playing is. So why is it important then to play a game? Well, that's because you can experience something in a tiny world. Because what you do when you play a game is you create a tiny world that lives outside of your actual working day. So it's an experiment, basically, where you can experience a model. For instance, some of you probably have played the ballpoint game, or you have played the coin game, explaining you the concept of why it's more efficient to have work distributed over a couple of teams. And when you have done a little piece of work, another team does it instead of doing batch work like we did in a waterfall project. Now you can tell people that why Agile might be a better way than waterfall in such case. But if you play that little game in just 15 minutes, people have experienced why this is the case. So experience is one of the things why play, I think, is important. And I've already given that one away because it can solve a problem. If you are in that game space, you can actually work on a problem that you actually have as a team. Or for yourself, you can play a game indeed as well if you want to. You can also make a change, because if you live through that experience and you see that there's a problem in this gaming space, you might be able to make a change in the real world. You might try something that you've learned in that game in the real world. And I think that's where a lot of Agile coaches and also test coaches, that's why I think they need to know about playing games, because that can make that change in your work. Because telling is not really teaching, right? If you play a game, they can experience it. What's beautiful about that is that world I've been talking about. If you do it right, you create a safe environment. And what I mean by that is that it's an environment where you are allowed to fail. People don't want to fail. It's also, I don't want to fail. I always want to do it right. But a lot of things that I do are new to me. A lot of things when you change your way of working are new to you. And you don't want to fail. So what you can do with a game is then first practice and do that in an environment where it doesn't matter if you fail. But you do learn, so that in the real world you don't make that mistake, or you know how to address it. So that's why I also like to play games. It facilitates a safe environment where you can learn then something. You can be creative. Not all games have this aspect, but in a lot of the agile and testing games that I play at work, people can get more creative than they usually do. Often people say, hey, we have to think outside of the box. Well, that's great that you say that, but it doesn't automatically mean that people just snap and be creative. But if you facilitate that in a game, you can help them being more creative. And of course, it is more fun. It is really fun to do. Not everybody might like every game, but the games that I've played at work, I've seen people that were not really into games really came on to me afterwards saying, "Oh, this actually was fun. Can we do this more often?" And it doesn't always happen, but a lot of times people have a lot of more fun. So that's why I think it's really important to play those games.
Thank you. And could you give an example of a game?
Yeah, in fact, I'll give you lots of examples, but I'll give you one example where you can see how this all works. Now, I tried to search for the good video. It's not the best video, but I hope you'll see what I mean. It is, by the way, in Sweden, and you'll see people tapping with pens to each other. I'm telling you this because, well, at first you might be thinking, what am I looking at? Well, people are tapping with pens and making a sound.
Yes, is Björn over? Well, congratulations.
So what you just saw here was a quest that was solved. The quest is a mini game within this game where people have to cooperate and they have to create a tune with a couple of items that they get. Now, this is part of a bigger game that was invented during Play for Agile, where I was a part of, and actually invented the game with a couple of others there. And you might think, okay, so was this a game? Were people playing? Why were they doing stuff with a pen? I'm not going to explain that to you now. You'll just simply have to play the game with me when you're on the Agile Testing Days, or if you're interested, I can give you a description afterwards. But what I do want to show you is people's reactions after we've played this game. I've simply asked, okay, so what did you notice after playing a couple of these games? It's not one mini game that you just saw, but a bunch of them. What you see here are people's reactions. And you can see a couple of things that I wrote on the slide before, that people were having fun, it was solving actual problems that they were given, and they were creative. And in fact, I was amazed by the game that people were so creative. And I really think that's cool because, well, a lot of people say, I'm not that creative, I can't think outside of the box. But when you throw them this game at them, they are. But you also see a couple of other things that I didn't mention, and that's why I think this game came to existence. People experience something within the group. It's a collaborative game, so you have to have some teamwork. People felt really engaged, and they saw that by self-organizing themselves, people were using multiple skills, and they were using skills from each other. But they also saw sometimes somebody took the leadership in this game, sometimes somebody didn't. So they experienced group dynamics basically in such a innocent game. So that's one thing that's interesting. But the other thing that's really interesting is what you see here. During the game, they started to wonder, okay, so what are these quests about? They all seem to be really tiny and fairly simple, but fun to do. And they were only shown one sentence. And one sentence describes their problem that they have to solve, the game that they have to play. And they started to play around with that sentence. They wanted to know, am I done with this game? Did I meet the objective? Now, does this sound familiar to you, people who have been in an Agile project? The definition of done. When are we ready? And by the way, what was our expected result? What are we expected to do? Is it just these 2 lines? That's just too vague. So people start to, within the game, discuss this, and they come to the conclusion, sometimes we need a little bit more of guidance, but sometimes we as a team can simply decide when we are done with something and it's good. Now that's why I like this game so much, because it gives people something to think about, their own definition of done. So I hope they go back to their work and think, when they look at the user story, what's this user story about? Is it good enough for me? Do we know what we have to do, or don't we need to write anything down just like in documentation? But can we do that for ourselves and then simply present the result and then say, is this good enough for you, dear product owner? So I think with just this simple game that I've just vaguely showed and explained to you, people already experience a lot of things about testing and Agile and working together.
There's a thing I ask myself, because you always seem to use play and game in similar terms. Can you explain what's the difference between playing and gaming?
Yeah, of course. Well, I gave you the example of kicking a ball at the wall. If you're just doing that, it's not a game, because you're simply kicking a ball at the wall, and you might learn something about gravity or your own physical body health, how to kick a ball. But it only turns into a game when you have rules into it, and when you have a goal actually next to it. And by the game I've just showed you in the video, I will show you how this was created within this game. Here you see the same people that you just saw in the video, or well, most of them are the same. And you see we are actually at Agile Testing Day Scandinavia here. And first thing you need is a game space. So you need to have something that's not part of your actual work. You can also do that at work, just book a meeting room, and there you have your game space. Another thing that you need is you need to have some boundaries. So people need to know when when the game ends, and what time do you have, and what space do you play in. If you don't set this, well, you never know when the game's finished, and it's actually not a game. It might be just playing. Obviously, you need some rules. You need some rules on how to play this game. If you don't know how to play it, then people might just do something without knowing what they're doing. Of course, you need some artifacts. The ball in the previous example, or in this case, you see a couple of papers, and they build a card house out of it. A couple of cards, and they build a card house out of it. And of course, what I started with is you need a goal. You need to be able to win or to lose, so you have something to play for. And that's what I think is the difference between playing and gaming. So you can play within a game, but you can't have a game without play.
And how can I organize such a game?
Well, these are the basic rules that are the basic characteristics of a game. And I didn't invent these characteristics. They're from a book called Game Storming. You'll see the link later on. So for starters, try and read that book, or just the first few chapters where they explain what actually a game is. What I think is the most important thing is facilitation. So make sure that you have such a room, and gather a couple of games, but also know why you are playing these games, and make sure to people, either during or after, why they have played this game. I didn't tell people what was the actual purpose for me of this game. I simply showed them the rules you now also see on this slide, and people started playing. And during the game, people might think, okay, I'm having fun, but why am I doing this? Why am I playing this at the Agile Testing Games? And afterwards, we do the aftermath, what's the word again? Well, we reflect upon the game, and then suddenly you have terms like DoD and team dynamics in there. So be aware of why you're playing that game, and know that you have to make that point as explicit.
And what kind of games do you play at work?
A lot, but I'll give you a couple of examples in a couple of categories. So for instance, a simple one is I'd like to know where people are. And what I mean by that is what knowledge do they have before I start to teach or mentor or coach people. And you can play a simple game of Jeopardy. For instance, you can create a small quiz within teams, as you see here on the picture, where a guy actually wins the book Explore It because he has won the game with his team, and then in the finale he wins from his team fellas. And what he showed is his experience, or not his experience, his knowledge in the content of the training for 2 days. And on the right, you see an example of the questions that were asked in this quiz. Another example is team building games. For instance, how you can get to know each other. I play the game Two Truths, One Lie. I like to play that game, where people get to know each other a little bit more, and you get to know surprising secrets about each other. Or energizer games like Happy Salmon. Happy Salmon is just an actual game, and it's simply an energizer where people are high-fiving and pounding each other and greeting each other continuously. It's absolute chaos. You can probably on Twitter look for some videos of it. I will bring it to the Agile Testing Day, so if you're interested already, then wait and come.
And what kind of games tell me something about testing, especially for the testers who are watching?
Of course, I didn't tell you about that, of course. Well, there are a couple of games that I will introduce to you. One is Story Dice. That's not necessarily a testing game, but what you can do with Story Dice is you can do retrospectives, for instance. well, you get people a little bit more creative. When you throw a dice, you see an image on it, and you can ask people, so what did we do last sprint? And then use the dice to create a story. The nice thing about that is that when people are really frustrated about anything, they can vent through the dice, and you get a kind of a fun story, but there is actually a point. So you detach the frustration that a person has, and you put it into the dice. So the people pay attention to the story. It might solve something that actually happened, but they don't look at the person like, oh, you're really angry. People are having fun, and the point comes across. Another game is Black Stories, for instance, where you can, it's an actual game where you have to solve a murder by guessing and deducting what has happened. I'd like to kick off a specification session with this, or a sprint preparation, because it gets people into this mode where they kind of attack the specifications or the user story that a product owner comes with. So people get more critical when you just play one of these rounds, for instance. Another game of a whole different kind is a bug hunt. It is a game where you have a competition in finding bugs, and where everybody collaborates with each other. So the nice thing about this is that you actually find bugs. You find that I found that a lot of people like to play it, even not testers. And it's a great tool, I think, to introduce people to exploratory testing and have fun altogether, and even assessing the quality of your product. There are also a couple of games. You see me here facilitating a dice game. I also have some dices here. And this game and also the coin game are more about pattern recognition, which is a thing testers are quite good at. So you need to find out what is the rule within the dice that you throw. So you can help people playing these games to sharpen their test approach. When people are randomly throwing dice and then thinking, oh, is this the rule, or is this the rule? You can nudge them a little bit and say, hey, why don't you log what you've already asked me while you were throwing a couple of things, for instance? So that tells you about log your tests. And you do that by just playing a game with dice where people want to find out what is the rule. Other game is a shortcut game from Elizabeth Hendrickson, where you teach people what is, or show people actually, what is technical debt about. So that's about quality. That's about how do we deliver a sprint without having a lot of technical debt in there. And people really experience what it is to have technical debt, but in a couple of minutes. It's a wonderful game. Last but not least, not really a test game, but one that you can play when you think that the team is not really collaborating that much. It's Space Team. It's an app that you can download and can play on both iOS and Android. And what you learn from this game is how people communicate with each other when there's a chaotic situation. It's really fun to play, but it can also show how people normally react in a team. But while you're doing this in this game, you can actually make it a little bit more tangible. Like, yeah, this person is always like taking the lead and it's not helping us because we're losing. What can we do about that? And after that game, when you've played it and you hopefully have improved yourself, you can have a discussion about, okay, so how does this reflect in your real work? Is this the same, or can we help you as a team to communicate more effectively?
But how can I address people that are skeptical about playing, or that are immediately put off if you mention the word playing?
Yeah, that happens from time to time. Well, you can of course avoid the word game. I already told you that a game is a simulation world that you create, a world of its own. So I'd like to simply say we're going to do a simulation where we try and find out what's happening within our work, and then simply play the game. Or you can say, I'd like to do an experiment, which is different. But if we do that, then I hope we can solve this and this problem. So look what's in it for them. The people that don't like the word, how can you engage them in solving a problem, and then simply play the game without using the words, for instance. That's a couple of things that I do. Another thing is simply play it. Don't mention that it's a game and that it's really serious and that it will help us. Just play it.
All right, so I'm sold now, but where can I find more resources to host games myself?
Well, where you can find these games are the internet, of course, but to help you a little bit more in where you can find them on the internet is tastycupcakes.org is really a nice website that has a lot of agile and test games. You can even see for how many people it is, how long does it take, what does it teach you. It's my primary resource when I want to address a new problem that I see and I want to solve that with a game or try to solve that with a game. Of course, the book Game Storming I already told you about. Another book is Training from the Back of the Room, which is more about how people learn and how you can teach them in a more fun and interactive way. But it also has quite a lot of games in there that you can play. And another book from the same writer is the 10-Minute Trainer, which has even well, it says 150 ways to make people experience something and teach them something. There are more resources, but I want to mention this one as well. Is Play for Team and Play for Agile that I already mentioned. You can at this URL find some games, but they also have events. So there are actual events where people are only concentrating on playing games for the benefit of their work. And last but not least, drums. Agile Testing Days is planning something. We are going to do something with games. I'm a little bit vague about that because, well, we want to remain it a secret, actually. However, what we will be doing probably is we will be collecting a couple of these favorite games and present them in a way to you that you can actually take them home and play. So stay tuned for more news on that. Of course, even without that, on the Agile Testing Days, we have the Agile Games Market. We have the Play Anything Lab, where you can play with all kinds of puzzles and games, and have a lot of fun in and learning about Agile and testing.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And there's one question I have, because you said it's experience the good and the bad in a safe environment, and I would like to know what's the bad.
What's the bad? Well, as I told you, you can also fail in a game, but that's not the essence of the game. The essence of the game is that you do an experiment, and when you have failed in winning the game, you can learn something from it. So what I mean by the bad is that you're actually losing in that safe environment, but you have a learning experience in that. So that's what I meant with the good and the bad, the winning and the losing.
Thank you. Do you have any other remarks?
No, I hope to see a lot of you testers at the Agile Testing Days. Hope you have enjoyed this talk. If you'd like to know more about the games I play or other people play that I know of, simply contact me on Twitter at Eddy Bruin, or send me an email on eddy@loopforward.nl. And last but not least, if you think, okay, this is nice, but I'm not too sure if I should do this, treat it as an experiment. Just simply try the games And I know it's terrifying, but I'm sure it will work out for you. Just push yourself one time. If it works, keep on doing it. If it doesn't work, try and see what you've learned from it, and then try it again.
Thank you. Before I say goodbye to you, I just want to tell the viewers who's going to be my guest next week. Next week, Olaf Lewitz, who is a tutorial speaker with Christine Neithardt together at the Agile Testing Days 2017, is going to talk about how to show up so that you create context where more leadership emerges. So please tune in next week and get a sneak peek on how Olaf Lewitz talks and presents. He's great, by the way. So
he is, and he's also one of the players, by the way.
Please tune in next week. And now I would like you to stop the screen sharing, Eddy. So thank you very much.
Thank you
for your talk. It's quite interesting. I'm looking forward to the Agile Games night now. I hope to see you there.
I'll see you there, and we'll play some awesome games and talk about testing.
Thank you very much. See you then. Bye.
Ciao.